instant the very first group of enthusiastic Filipino supporters landed at Linz Airport, the Women's Tennis Association realized they were facing an unexpected challenge. When the second wave of travelers poured in, the challenge quickly escalated into a full-blown emergency. And by the time the third, fourth, and fifth waves arrived, flooding the quiet Austrian city, the entire organization was left scrambling in disbelief, completely caught off guard and unprepared for what was unfolding. Long before the Upper Austria Ladies Linz tournament was set to begin, an astonishing crowd of roughly 35,000 Filipino fans had already descended upon the small city of Linz. The venue itself could only hold a little more than 5,000 spectators. Every hotel room in the area had been reserved for weeks in advance. The streets were alive with vibrant Philippine flags fluttering everywhere, and the air echoed with passionate chants of Laban Alex. The WTA had witnessed the powerful Eala effect in bigger cities like Melbourne, Dubai, and Miami, but nothing compared to the sheer scale of what was happening here. Never before had such massive numbers overwhelmed a modest city of just 200,000 residents. Never had fan enthusiasm so dramatically outgrown the tournament's limited infrastructure. As more and more flights continued to arrive from Manila, Dubai, and various parts of Europe, the WTA found itself confronting a question that seemed almost impossible to answer. How do you successfully host a professional tennis tournament when the fans have essentially taken over the entire city? The Upper Austria Ladies Linz tournament was still 3 days away from its first matches. The courts were only just being prepared, the nets were being carefully tightened, and the sponsor banners were still in the process of being hung. Yet the fans had already arrived in overwhelming force. Around 35,000 Filipino travelers had made the journey to this peaceful Austrian city, a number so enormous that local authorities at first believed the reports must have been some kind of mistake or exaggeration. These devoted supporters came from Manila, from Dubai, and from Filipino communities scattered across Europe. Many arrived on specially organized charter flights arranged by community groups, while others traveled by train from Vienna or took long bus rides from neighboring countries like Germany, Switzerland, and Italy. They brought with them a sea of Philippine flags, colorful banners, and handmade signs proudly displaying messages of support and national pride for Alex Eala. Linz Airport, which normally handled only a few thousand passengers each day, was suddenly swamped. The baggage claim area turned into a vibrant ocean of red, white, and blue. Taxi queues stretched for several blocks, and hotel lobbies were packed with excited fans checking in well ahead of their scheduled reservation dates. By the time the sun went down that day, the entire city had undergone a remarkable transformation. Philippine flags hung from countless hotel windows, were draped across bridges, and tied to street lamps throughout the town. Local restaurants that had never offered Filipino cuisine before quickly added dishes like adobo and lumpia to their menus to cater to the visitors. Businesses hurried to bring in staff who could speak Tagalog. Even the city's tourist board, which had initially viewed the tennis event as a relatively minor occasion, suddenly found itself responding to inquiries from major international media outlets that had rarely, if ever, paid attention to the Linz Open in the past. "We have never experienced anything like this," one exhausted local official admitted to reporters. "It feels as though an entire small city's population has been transported here overnight, and every single person has come for one young athlete." That athlete, Alex Eala, was still training hard in Mallorca at the Rafa Nadal Academy, getting ready for her clay court season debut. She was not scheduled to reach Linz for another 2 days, but her fans did not mind waiting. They had traveled far not just to watch her play, but simply to be close to her, to breathe the same air and walk the same streets she would soon walk. They had come to turn this quiet Austrian town into a vibrant, joyful celebration of Filipino identity and pride. The numbers surrounding the pre-tournament period painted a picture no one in the tennis world could have foreseen. Ticket sales for the event had skyrocketed by more than 400% compared to the previous year, a massive surge that organizers had neither expected nor properly planned for in their budget. Every session that included Alex Eala sold out within hours of becoming available. Officials were forced to relocate her matches to the larger design center Linz to try to handle the demand, but even that venue's capacity of around 5,000 proved far from enough. The economic boost to the city was equally remarkable. Hotels reported full occupancy throughout the tournament week, a level of demand usually reserved only for Linz's famous Christmas markets. Restaurants in the city center extended their hours, with many staying open around the clock and posting record-breaking sales. The local tourist board projected that the event would bring in more than 10 million euros in economic activity, over 10 times the previous record for any similar occasion. Air traffic into Linz had jumped by 300%, prompting airlines to schedule additional flights from Manila, Dubai, and major European cities. The small regional airport built for calm daily operations was now handling tens of thousands of passengers. Baggage handlers worked extra shifts, customs officers were stretched to their limits, and the modest terminal felt like it was bursting at the seams. Media coverage reached levels never seen before for this tournament. International news organizations that had previously ignored the Linz Open now sent teams to capture the extraordinary sight of thousands of Filipino fans transforming an Austrian city. Philippine television channels broadcast live reports from the streets, with anchors standing in front of the design center Linz as national flags waved proudly behind them. Social media platforms overflowed with photos and videos of the Filipino diaspora gathered together in Austria, flags waving high, voices united in song and celebration. Even the WTA, which had already become somewhat familiar with the growing Eala effect after seeing it overwhelm ticket systems in Miami and spark a 48% increase in sales in Dubai, was stunned by the intensity in Linz. "We have never seen anything on this scale," a WTA spokesperson confessed. "The numbers are simply unprecedented. We are working closely with local authorities to maintain safety and security for everyone, but the size of this gathering is unlike anything we have dealt with before." Behind the scenes, the WTA was operating in full crisis management mode. The organization had spent weeks coordinating with local police, security teams, and tournament staff, yet none of those preparations had accounted for an influx of 35,000 passionate fans. Emergency meetings were held at the WTA's European offices. Discussions ranged from trying to relocate the entire event to a bigger venue, though Vienna was too far for most fans who had already booked accommodations in Linz, to limiting further ticket sales, which was impossible since most tickets were already sold. Security was increased, but personnel were already overworked. The idea of canceling the tournament was briefly floated, but the financial losses and damage to the sport's reputation would have been devastating. One insider, speaking on condition of anonymity, put it plainly, "We are simply not prepared for this. Every time we think we have a handle on the Eala effect, it grows even bigger and proves us wrong again." This was not the first time the WTA had struggled with Alex Eala's surging popularity. At the Australian Open earlier that year, her first-round match on a small outer court had drawn lines that snaked around Melbourne Park, forcing security to turn hundreds of fans away. In Dubai, her presence had caused ticket sales to rise by 48% year-over-year. In Miami, the online ticket platform had crashed on the very first day of sales due to overwhelming demand from Filipino supporters. But Linz was different. It was a modest city of 200,000 people, not a sprawling international metropolis like Melbourne or Miami. Its infrastructure was never designed to absorb such a sudden and massive wave of visitors. Hotels were completely full, restaurants were struggling to cope, streets were crowded, and the tournament had not even started yet. For months, tennis insiders had been talking about the Eala effect, but the scenes unfolding in Linz took the phenomenon into entirely new territory. Why would 35,000 fans, later growing to 40,000 and then 45,000, be willing to travel to a small Austrian city for a WTA 500 event? Why would they spend thousands of dollars on flights and hotels, take time off from work, and rearrange their lives just to watch a 20-year-old player who had not yet won a Grand Slam title and whose ranking had recently slipped from number 29 to number 45? Marketing experts had been pointing to the answer for some time. It was about deep emotional connection. For many in the Filipino diaspora, Alex Eala represents far more than just a talented tennis player. She stands as a powerful symbol of possibility, a living example that a young person from Manila can rise to compete on the world's greatest stages and be recognized globally. She embodies the overseas Filipino worker (OFW) dream, the belief that sacrifice, perseverance, and hard work can lead to something truly remarkable. When a player carries the hopes of an entire nation, the atmosphere in the stadium often feels more like a Davis Cup tie than an individual match. As one experienced referee noted earlier in the season, people are not just cheering for a player, they are cheering for their country. That sense of national pride was unmistakable in Linz. The fans who had journeyed from across Europe and beyond were not only supporting Alex Eala, they were proudly celebrating the Philippines itself. Flags waved, songs were sung, and a strong feeling of shared heritage filled the air. The actual tennis matches sometimes seemed almost secondary to the larger cultural celebration. Professor Crystal Antonia Russell, a marketing expert at Pepperdine Graziadio Business School, had analyzed the phenomenon months earlier. This pride, the genuine Filipino pride, is authentic. You cannot manufacture it. In a world where people crave real, heartfelt emotions and inspiring stories of athletic achievement, Alex Eala represents so many of those values. Eala herself had spoken openly in the past about the heavy weight of expectations and the difficulty of remaining grounded when thousands of voices are chanting her name. In Linz, that devotion was on full display even before she arrived, a powerful testament to how deeply her supporters felt connected to her. As the days went on, the crowd kept growing. What began as 35,000 fans soon swelled to 40,000, and then 45,000 as additional flights continued to bring more supporters from Manila, Dubai, and around the world. The city of Linz, home to 200,000 residents, was now playing host to nearly a quarter of its usual population in visitors, all gathered in support of one young tennis star. The airport, already pushed to its limits, continued to set new daily passenger records. Airlines added more flights, yet demand still outpaced supply. Some fans endured journeys lasting 24 hours or longer, making multiple connections just to reach Linz. The city's roads, hotels, and public services were stretched almost to breaking point. Local authorities, who had first welcomed the economic benefits, began voicing serious concerns about crowd control, public safety, and the strain on emergency services. Faced with growing pressure, the WTA issued a public statement asking fans without tickets to watch the matches from home. But the message had little effect. These supporters had not traveled thousands of miles simply to stay away. They had come to be part of history, to celebrate their culture, and to show the world that Filipinos could unite anywhere on the planet. The extraordinary scenes in Linz, the massive crowds, the overwhelmed city services, and the complete transformation of a quiet Austrian town, represent a turning point for professional tennis. For many years, the WTA has worked to grow its audience, attract new markets, and build the kind of loyal, passionate fan bases that the men's tour has long enjoyed. With Alex Eala, they finally have that devoted following, but they appear uncertain about how to manage it. The Eala effect is more than just a successful marketing story. It is a profound challenge to the traditional way tennis has been structured for generations. The sport's stadiums, schedules, and overall organization were created for a time when fans simply came to watch the tournament. In Linz, the fans arrived first, and the tournament itself sometimes felt like an afterthought. Caught entirely by surprise, the WTA has now announced a full review of its tournament planning, with special attention to fan engagement and infrastructure needs. For the thousands of supporters already in Linz, however, such promises feel distant and insufficient. They came to see Alex Eala to honor their heritage and to take part in something far bigger than the sport itself. No amount of corporate strategy can create or replace that kind of genuine passion. Meanwhile, Alex Eala remained focused in Majorca, training diligently at the Rafa Nadal Academy in preparation for her clay court campaign. Though she had not yet set foot in Linz, she was closely following the developments from afar. In a short statement released by her team, she expressed sincere gratitude. "I am overwhelmed by the incredible love and support from the Filipino community. To know that so many people have traveled all the way to Austria just to cheer for me is deeply humbling. I will do everything I can to honor that support with my best effort on the court." Yet behind her thankful words, the pressure was undeniable. Eala has spoken before about the challenge of handling sky-high expectations while trying to stay focused and humble. In Linz, those expectations had reached unprecedented levels. Her record on clay courts remains modest so far. She has won only 3 of her 10 tour-level matches on the surface, and has yet to advance beyond the second round in any clay event. Her debut at Roland Garros the previous year ended in a first-round loss. The slower pace, higher bounces, longer rallies, and greater need for patience and smart tactics all present real tests compared to the faster hard courts where she has shown brightest. Still, Alex Eala has never been one to back down from a challenge. In a recent podcast conversation with former world number 1 Andy Roddick, she talked about the importance of adapting as opponents begin to study her game more closely following her rapid rise. As the WTA continues to grapple with the overwhelming support for its rising star, one thing is clear. Whether her ranking sits at number 45 or higher, Alex Eala carries something far more valuable than any number: the unwavering love and loyalty of an entire nation that is ready to follow her to any corner of the world. What are your thoughts on the incredible journey of over 35,000 fans who made their way to Austria for Alex Eala? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments below. Subscribe to Rally Radar for daily WTA updates, in-depth match analysis, and stories that dive far beyond the final score. Because at Rally Radar, we bring you the heart of the game.